All right, well, good evening, everybody. How you doing today? Sorry for the technical issues to the people that are online watching. Everything here looks like it's backwards because it is on your view, but for everybody here in attendance, you can see it all fine. Those of you online, just pay attention to what we're saying, because that's more important than what's going to be up here anyway, especially on my part. I'm Christian Belko. I'm a certified developer and administrator with CRM Science. Co-presenting with me today is Mr. T. It's not every day you can say you're presenting with Mr. T, but today is one of those days, as well as Mario, and they're both with Eigenex, right? And we're going to be bringing you the session of our Clicks to Code series called Data Loaders. So if you've never been to a Clicks to Code event before, bear with us. We're going to have a lot of different stuff going on. We're going to start at a very basic level, but by the end, Mr. T and Mario are going to blow your socks off with some of the different ways that you can use Data Loader, different stuff that you kind of have going forward from here. We're here as part of Philly Force, and if you want to go to the next slide. We all got here tonight by through the Meetup site, meetup.com/PhillyForce. We have well over 700 members, close to 800 members now. So if you have a couple people who haven't joined up or new comrades you're meeting out there in the Salesforce world, please tell them to sign up on the Meetup site. We'll be having some upcoming events over the summer. And then don't forget, right around August, we'll be having probably another Dreamforce dry run session to be able to see some of the practice sessions that may be used at Dreamforce. That was very popular for us last year. So get on the site and check all that out. Tonight we'll also continue the conversation, like all the bad jokes about how the screen's backwards for people online, as well as for everybody here to ask some different questions. More than likely, most of them will be for Mr. T and Mario, but for any questions that you want to ask me, ask in the comment section. Barb actually had a great question today. Was there going to be food at the event? And as the people here know, there was plenty of great food. So it's one of those question and response type things. You never know what you'll get a response to going forward from that. We also have our discussion forum. Anybody who's a non-logged in member can see our discussion as well as our admin forum. You do have to be logged in to see our jobs forum. So for any of you who are out there who are searching, I know there's a couple people in the audience. Some of our recruiters have taken an active role in putting some new things in the jobs forum. So if you're looking to increase your site, you can go into there. But here you can talk about all types of topics, from Salesforce questions you may have, to if you're looking for work to be done in your org, to if you want to organize a poker game, which I saw in there the other day, which is kind of interesting. I'd actually be about that if you want to do that. Cool. But again, we can set that all up in the different forms going from there. So. Special thanks to our host tonight, Liquid Hub. They did a fantastic job providing some great food here and some great technical support. Doesn't help that Kirk's camera may or may not be broken, so we'll have to talk to Kirk about that. But they do some great work here. They have some great consulting needs. Usually they would be able to speak. However, they had to step out a little bit early tonight for a different thing that he's doing in-house. So maybe at the end we'll have them come back and speak to it as well going forward. So, meet the team tonight. As I mentioned, Mr. T, unless you want to try pronouncing that name all night, I'm going to go with Mr. T. Also, Mario and myself are going to be your presenters, and we're going to run the gambit of the Clicks to Code series here for you. So, I know there's not a lot of people here tonight, but you can consider yourselves one of the lucky ones, because you're going to know how to do some stuff with different data loaders that people who just chose not to attend who enjoyed the 78-degree wonderful night outside are going to miss out on. So tonight's agenda, we're going to cover a couple different topics. First of all, probably the most important, what is data loader? We're going to cover one-time data loads. We're going to cover recurring data loads. We're going to get into a little bit about Jitterbit, talk about when to use what types of tools, preventing problems with data loads, as well as a question and answer session at the end for those of you who are completely lost by that point. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and we'll get started with tonight's agenda, flippy slide. So you'll be seeing all kinds of transitions and stuff going forward. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the basics of data loaders. If we talk about data loader, we see the little icon there. Well, what is the Salesforce data loader? For those of you who haven't used it before, the data loader, flip the slide. Sorry, I did it on the clip. So The technical term from Salesforce is that it's an easy-to-use graphical tool that helps you get your data into Salesforce objects. The short answer is it's a lifesaver if you are looking to upload thousands upon thousands of records in Salesforce. You can do it very easily. If you've never downloaded the data loader or knew where to grab it before, you go to your setup, then you go to Administer, Data Management, and Data Loader. And when you go in there, you'll see a nice version of Salesforce from about 1999 with the different graphics that they had in there, as well as a little hyperlink to download the Windows data loader going forward. So what does the data loader allow you to do? It allows you to insert, allows you to update, upsert, which is a cool feature we'll be talking about in a little bit, allows you to delete some different information, export, and then export all data from a connected Salesforce org. So with Data Loader, if you're going to log into your Data Loader for the first time, you obviously need your username and password, but then you also need to get what's called your security token. Anybody ever see those security tokens? It's like all the alphanumeric stuff together. That is a portion that's required for Data Loader in order to log into it, at least with a Salesforce Data Loader going forward. So let's move on. Ooh, another slide. Features of the Salesforce Data Loader. You can just go ahead and click through. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Isn't the security token, it's only when you're outside of the IP address? Because I never have to use it when I'm at work, but I have to use it only when I'm at home using it.
That's correct. If you whitelist an IP, you don't use security token.
As long as your IP within the trusted IP release, you should be good. That's what happens when you're inside the office.
Yeah.
See, this is the kind of interaction online, people, that you only get if you're here. So make more of an effort. Features of the Salesforce Data Loader. You want to go ahead and click through that. So here's some of the different features, and Windows actually put this down here, but this is my favorite line on the whole slide. There will be an official Mac Data Loader coming in summer 15 that will be available, GA. I'm very excited to put the secondary link. For anybody who's had to use Lexi Loader here, it's a great tool. It's just nice to know that there'll be a Salesforce supported tool. No comments from the peanut gallery in the back with Alex Sutherland, who looked at the Mac Data Loader right before we came to the call and had some choice words for some of the designers around there. Well, what does the Data Loader do? Well, it's an easy-to-use wizard interface. Unless you come from a hardcore programming background, which it seems like everybody I work with does, except for me, this easy-to-use interface is definitely helpful for those of us who are still trying to learn on our feet. It does give you a command line interface, and we'll talk a little bit later about how you can use that to actually do some pretty neat tricks inside of the Data Loader as well. It has support for large files with up to millions of rows, because nobody here's ever just loaded, data with one field, right? All your data loads probably have hundreds of thousands of different fields that need to go in, and then one thing's wrong and throws everything off going forward from there. You have the drag and drop field mapping, as well as the ability to save your field mapping if you're doing consistent data loads on a day in, day out basis. You have support for all of the different objects, which you don't necessarily have for things like the import wizard, right? We're not going to talk about import wizard tonight, but that is something that's a great feature for Data Loader, and one of those test questions when it comes to certification. What can you use the Data Loader for versus import wizards? That's a good thing to talk about. Also gives you the successes and error log files. I thank God for the error log files, because I can't tell you how many times I put something into the system and the slightest thing that you do wrong or put in there, you can just find out real quick and change your data and get it good to go. You also have the built-in CSV file view if you want to preview your file before you kind of send that out going forward. So now we know a little bit about the Data Loader. Let's talk about reasons to use the Data Loader. And again, if we click through with the Data Loader, obviously, with import wizards, you can load up to about 50,000 records, bringing stuff in if it meets the criteria to use the import wizard. Data Loader can go all the way up to 5 million. So if you're talking about lots of different records, Data Loader might be the one to be able to support it going forward from there. Again, you can load into an object that's not supported by the import wizard. Great import wizards are great for like leads if you want to bring those in, great for like other types of things, but if you have something like opportunities you want to load into the system, Data Loader is good for helping with that information. You want to schedule regular data loads, such as nightly imports, things that you want to bring into your system. You can definitely use the Data Loader for that. Or if you want to export your data for backup purposes, because everything always goes fine. We never need to back up our data in the system, right? So it's good to have that ability to use the Data Loader to bring things out, where you can't necessarily do that with an import wizard, right? Because you can only import. Shake your head, look out pretty good. Everybody's good. Okay, nice. Very good to go. So again, a couple good reasons on why to use the Data Loader. If we move on to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about one-time data loads. So things that you want to consider with one-time data loads, consider what a use case might be for the data loader. Can it be done with the import wizard? If you're going to import leads, you could probably push that off to somebody and show them how to use the data import wizard and let them use some of the graphical features that are available in there. If you're talking about maybe doing a one-time data load, like you're working with a new client who's just bringing Salesforce in, and they need to load their accounts, they need to load their users, they need to load all different kinds of stuff there. You want to think about not only how you're going to load the data into the system, but what order that you want to bring things into. The first time I ever tried to use the data loader was when my manager asked me to load in a bunch of opportunities. So I went in there and just tried to load the opportunities, and I kept getting an error message. I didn't realize, and this was well before certification, that you need to load accounts first, because if you're trying to connect opportunities to nothing, it doesn't necessarily work so well. So you had to load the accounts in first, then the opportunities. Helps you figure out when you're structuring your data. So when you're going to do a one-time data load, you need to follow 3 steps. You need to create your data file, which is that CSV type file that some of you may have seen before, some of you may have used. That's called a comma separated. There you go. And that'll allow you to, I just call it CSV, it's easier for me. Anyway, so you can prepare that file, get it all squared away to be able to bring in your data. Then you want to prepare your data for imports. So what does that mean? Well, you want to make sure that the data you're bringing in is set up to go into your org correctly. Everybody here knows about Salesforce IDs and how IDs relate to different records, okay? So if you're going to do a data load and you're going to load accounts, let's say, and you're going to put a bunch of different accounts in there, you don't want to put the account owner's name, right? You want to look up their 15-digit, 18-digit ID, whatever, and be able to bring that over so that way it maps to the correct user going forward from there. And then you're going to set up the data loader to process your file. That's where you actually start to build out some different things going on from there. I'm going to hold off on my short demo because it wasn't very awe-inspiring when I did it. But believe me, we're going to have some cool demos later, so we wanted to leave some more time to kind of see those things going forward. So those are kind of one-time data loads. What we're going to talk about next is recurring data loads. And these are things that happen, like we talked about, those weekly exports that you're doing as far as from your system. Anybody here ever do like the weekly data export or data exports from your org? Or for a client's org? A couple people, okay. In those instances, you can choose what data you want to export, how often you want to do it, look at some of the different guidelines going forward from there. You can also save your mapping. I have a client who I'm just working with now. They're bringing in 5 different groups into one Salesforce org. But all of the mapping is pretty standard because they're using mostly standard fields on all the different page layouts. They just have different record types. So in that instance, I just saved the mapping. All the fields already map out the way they want to do it. I just assign it to the different record type, bring in the different owners. It saves me a lot more time than having to map each different time for each unique field that I'm kind of going in there. Now, this is a pro tip. I want to thank Mike Katolka for teaching me this week. This is something I literally just used on Tuesday, and it blew my mind. For those of you who don't know, you can actually use the data loader with an external ID to import related records of an object. Anybody here do that before? A couple people? One? Smart kids in the room? Okay, very cool. So what that means is, let's say you have object A, right? And then you have object B that is also dependent on it. If you have an ID on both that kind of relates and connects, you can map those IDs so they match. And remember earlier when I was talking about that upsert feature, right? So upsert allows you to either update a record that's already in the system or insert a new record that might need to kind of go in from there. What Mike showed me is that you can use that external ID field in your Salesforce data loader mapping to be able to map those together and bring over the related records to the objects, in this case object A, that relate to object B going forward from here. I know that's a very simple, very easy description there, but there's a lot more to it, which hopefully we'll cover a little bit later in the session that you can see. So that's a little bit about recurring data loads, one-time data loads, the basics of data loader going forward from here. What we really wanted to get into and kind of capture tonight is ways that you can use the data loader outside the box, different types of data loaders. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to the experts. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. T and Mario, and they'll go forward and explain a little bit more about some of the nuts and bolts going forward.
Thank you, Christian.
Yeah.
So before I get started, my name is Bhuyan Tyagarajan. So
I'm a Salesforce architect. I've been in Salesforce for almost 8 years now. So prior to that, I started my background from IT, from a programmer, I transitioned to an architect. So now I work for Igenex. We are a consulting partner at the moment. Mario, will you introduce yourself?
My name is Mario Pace. I'm also a technical architect with Igenex, and I'm certified admin and developer. So before this, I came from a programming background. So I was in web development, ASP.NET, C#. Now I'm full-time into Salesforce.
So, all right. So the way we're going to structure this is, I'm going to talk a little bit about, set the stage a little bit about what is this tool, Jitterbit, we talk about, right? Why use even Jitterbit, right? So I know the data loader pretty much can do your job, like importing leads, accounts, and contacts. So one of the things, why would you use Jitterbit is, imagine you are moving a system from the next one. And I'm going to tell you a story, so I have a story behind that as well. So when you talk about a system migration, a couple of objects, lead, accounts, contacts, and then you've got 50 to 100 custom objects to be loaded one time into Salesforce. Can data loader be able to? You can, but again, there are some limitations on it. And I kind of walk you through that. So to do that kind of a crazy data load, we use this tool. So again, Jitterbit is an open source tool, right? Again, there's two versions of it. The open source is the community edition, which you can download on the website. And they also have the paid editions as well. So the open source can do to a certain extent, but then the paid editions, if you want to integrate multiple systems and all, you have to go to the paid edition. So that's one option. So what all it can do, right? Again, it can do data imports using your CSVs, your web services, and other systems, right? It could run command line. You could run it in a batch mode to do that. And then again, for things if you want to do it repeatedly, like jobs to run, you can do that. Right? So that's a little bit about Jitterbit. So let's go to the next slide, Mario. So I'm going to tell a story. So the story is about John Smith, right? This is John Smith, the Salesforce admin, right? So he's a sales ops guy. He's done his job fantastically. Now this shining Salesforce org is given to him, and he's taking this challenge, right? He's become the Salesforce admin. So step one is the Salesforce org is brand new, right? And he has to load all his data, right? So first he starts thinking about, okay, he's got the data loader, which is available to him, and he can start loading leads. That's step one, maybe different accounts, contacts, and all that. So then he kind of thinks about, okay, for loading leads, I can do it with the data loader, right? I can take this file, CSV file, and import that. Let's go to the next one. Then a wrinkle happens. The IT team comes and says, you know what? I need to load this system before. What I mean by system is leads, account, contact, opportunities. I got this 50 custom objects from this crazy external system. I need to load this. He's puzzled. Now what do? I know I can do that with data loader, but IT again throws another way. You can't just load this in production because you need to test it. Right? And I'm sure you guys have been part of this journey as well. So what is testing? Put it on the sandbox. Okay? That's fine. I can load it on a sandbox. But then I have to do the same steps to do it again on production. So data load again, mappings can't work. You need to re-import it. So at that point comes Jitterbit. I mean, Jitterbit is kind of an IT tool, but again, it's very easy to use. They've made it very easy to do that. So what he can do with Jitterbit, right? So what he does is he's given all this data, the leads, accounts, contacts, everything as CSV files. So he takes all those files and then he uses data loader, and then he goes to Jitterbit and starts importing them, right? So a couple of things with Jitterbit, Christian kind of touched on this concept of external IT. So one of the things we did is, so we had a use case where we were doing for a government agency. So they had applicants, like, family members, they do all this benefit. So if I'm a family member, I got a husband, wife, kid, and then we have to load the related records, right? For example, their wealth and all that. So now you're talking about a 5-tier structure. You've got accounts, you've got contacts, and under the contact, you've got, their wealth, the other related records. So it's a 5-tier hierarchy. In order to load that, using data loader, you have to take one step at a time. Take a file, load the accounts, load the contacts, load the opportunities and all that. Now, since it's coming from an external system, each contact, which is in this case the individual, has an ID in that external system. So that's the external ID. So with Jitterbit, what you can do is, so when you're loading the contact and then you're loading the subsequent records, you don't need to go get the IDs again. Using that external ID again, so Mario is going to do a demo, you can say it. You can directly import it. And Salesforce does the job of relating it. So if you load the contact, it will load the account for you using that external ID. So Salesforce can look it up and do that. So that's the kind of crazy lookups which you can do using Jira. Okay? Now there's other tools in the market as well, called Talent is another tool, again, it's a developer tool for complicated data loads. What I mean by complicated is when you talk about more than 50 custom objects, lead account contacts, opportunities. So it's about a system migration. You're migrating from the external system. These kind of tools become very handy. Okay? So now we're loading the system. So you're using Jira to load it. So you got one step of it, accomplished. Then comes monitoring. Now comes the next wrinkle. We got the system in. We started using Salesforce. Then comes how are we going to integrate with other systems. So we're talking an ERP system. That's a very classic thing, right? So ERPs are orders and all those custom objects. And then there's other systems which has to be integrated. Now what can I do with that? So in that case, what kind of tools could work? Jira can work, but it has the limitations on that. So in that case comes these tools, Informatica, Boomi, and those tools come to rescue for there. So what does Informatica and Boomi does? So those systems already have plugin connectors, to whatever ERP systems you have. Again, there's paid versions of it. Obviously, there's a cost to do that. So using Informatica and Boomi, you could pretty much, connect to those external systems, set up the data load, and you can load the data. So this is your next level of advanced data load kind of a scenario. So again, here, the decision point is when would I transition from Jira to Informatica or other systems? Mostly with high volume, when the volume of data is high. What I mean by that, millions of records, right? And if there's a situation where there's a daily load which has to happen to Salesforce, 50,000, 100,000 records has to be pushed in. So those kind of criteria, these tools become very good. Second, the frequency of data loads. I have to refresh it every day, every hour, that kind of a scenario. I've seen that used. And again, multiple systems involved. We're talking about an ERP system, and HR system, and all those systems. So it is in that scenario we use these tools. So Informatica, Boomi, and there's other couple of tools out there in the market. Right? Things to consider: costs, obviously. You have and then also there's also some kind of an infrastructure dependency. Like Informatica has a cloud-based edition, you could manage it there. But some of the companies, like healthcare companies, they don't want to do that. You have to install Informatica on their on-premise. So then there's infrastructure dependency there. So those are things to kind of consider. So now he moves on and he goes to this external system. So he's got his external systems that are connected. So he's got a system also migrated. So next step comes marketing department. I need to do this data load, right? And this is just simple, I'm going to give you this vendor list, keep loading it in. That's a simple request from their side. But then from our side, the challenge is, okay, simple data loader can do the job, right? You can load the leads, you can load the contact. It's okay. Duplication comes into that. Duplication. That's a thing most of the time. So how do I manage that? Obviously, your data quality tools like demand tools and ring lists and all, we can clean the dupes, but you got to take a certain step back before you do that. So so that's something to kind of think about. Another thing most of the time people do is when you do this marketing. If I have a file, 50,000 leads, I load it in. How do I know the 50,000 leads are due before loading it in Salesforce, right? So one of the things that you guys can do is your full copy sample, if you guys use that. And if you do a monthly refresh, you at least have your production data there. And obviously it's off by the full copy sample before you load it in production. So what does that do? If you have your deduplication rules set up, this could at least help you to say some of them are dupes. That way you don't load your production data with garbage or bad data. So that's one thing you can do. So now the marketing department, you have to fill the lead. So that's the gap. Then comes the question of, okay, there's this tools out in the market. There's so many tools out there. I mean, obviously, simple tools, about import results, the data loader, and nutrition pretty much covered with that. The question is, there's another tools like Informatica and Jira, when to use and what to use. Again, I've given this like different pros and cons. I'm going to share the slides with you. But the goal is, the decision would be is, when you consider an external system, multiple objects, Jitterbug, Talent would be good to use. Again, when you connect different systems, Informatica, Boomi, and those two. So those are definitely we have two levels. And there's also different each tool coming to use. Regarding Talent and Jitterbug, more of a developer. Jitterbug is pretty easy to use. There's a tool called Talent Reset, it's a developer-friendly tool, and you can write basic scripts. Like for example, if I have to combine 50 objects into one file, into one custom object, so that kind of crazy scripting you can do with these tools. So that's why it's more friendly with the developers. I'm talking about both Talent and Jitterbug. So then, you go next slide. All right. So now we got everything. Now the things we need to be aware of, right? What else can I do to prevent the problem? Right? So what's problems, right? One, before you do any data load, whatever it is, whether it's lead, account, or contact, date formats. You know that's always the Salesforce date formats. Check fields which are having the date format. Okay, that's number one. The second, when you're doing Excel, most of the time it's Excel. You know this field truncation, Excel can do leading zeros up, zip codes. Those are things which are always different. Be aware of that. So if you have a zip code field, or if you have any field with a leading zero on it, just make a spot check on it. Then the second part is, okay, I got a file, I'm going to load data in. You got to have a plan, how do I verify if all my data is loaded fully, right? I mean, obviously, whatever tool you use, it's going to say it's successful, right? If it's a failure, it's going to tell you those 3 records are failed or not. But one more thing you can do as a spot check, can I use reports? Standard reports, to just do a count. So if I got a lead of 100,000 records, I do just a report for today's data load. I can say 100,000 records. That way I can verify. So have a plan in place to verify the data load. So that's important. The next one, classic scenario, large files. When you have more than 10,000 records or so, you're going to have this data logs and all those crazy scenarios. Salesforce is going to come into. So the best practice there is to split it into small files. So that's another thing to consider. Another thing, okay, sometimes that's bad data, right? You've got to have bad emails. That's going to throw problems around. So that's another thing to do. The 80-digit Salesforce IDs are good because sometimes you get into issues with the 50-digit and 80-digit IDs. So those are classic problems, prevention. These are things you can do before the data load. Okay? And then the next one is the pick list. That's another problem. So you have a pick list, you have a defined field, suddenly somebody puts some string in it. Obviously Salesforce loads it in, and then you find that crazy lead record, you have that, then you go to fix it. So that's another thing you cannot be aware of. So that's a pick list problem. And the last but not the least is a backup, right? So this is something you do weekly, at least have a weekly report or have a data backup. So that way if you load it in, you have a way to get it back. So these are steps you can do before the data. The next step is after the data work. Okay, so I got the data in. The next step is, okay, verification is at least having a plan, like a test, just a report, just doing a count. That's number one. And sometimes you may not have a scenario where there could be multiple data loads if you don't, right? So is there, I can put a field as an identifier, it's a yes or no field, to say 100 leads are loaded. I just go run a report with that field and just say yes, all my records are done. I think it's spot check. Okay? So that's one thing you want to do. The second thing is, okay, I goofed up. I imported a bad file. How do I roll back? So that's something to think about too. So what do I mean by that, right? Obviously, you can export it. You got the IDs, you loaded it, you deleted it, right? But again, just be careful. There could be also child records. You could have upserted existing records in it. So that is something you need to be aware of. Because you can't just go there and do a blind delete. So that's something to think about from a rollback perspective. The next thing to kind of think about is also, okay, I loaded the data, run your DBP tool, like your demand tools or whatever tool you use, to kind of give you an idea of duplicates. So that's a good practice to do. So once you do a data load, just do a DBP scenario to make sure your data is good. Because at the end of the day, it's all about data. Salesforce is all about data. And then the other one is, when you do a delete, do an impact. What do you mean by impact is, you might have your parent child, and sometimes you might have observed an existing record. So if you just delete the parent, you know that Salesforce will wipe out on the child. So those are things just to be aware of. The other scenario is rollups. So let's say you loaded a job. your parents, if you have a roll-up summary field, you might get the count. But there are some scenarios where you might have child objects which will go update the parent based on some conditions, like the most recent record, most recent dates. Now, you don't expect just because you loaded the parent or the child will be updated. So just be a lookout for that. So these are things you can do in order to prevent the data load. And obviously, you cannot do it, then your Salesforce org becomes this beautiful lake. I mean, isn't that the vision you want to have? Right? So we all kind of dream for that. Right? Obviously, it's muddy most of the time, but that's what we aspire to. And then your business kind of grows like a mountain. So that's the things you can do to do like a prevent problems of the serial. All right, so now I think, Kristen, you want to do the demo? Or you do
Yeah,
the demo
you guys
outside?
can go ahead and do the demo.
All right, so we're going to do a demo of Jitterbit, and then we can throw it out for them. All right, thank you. Very much. So this is the data loader tool, and Mario is kind of running through a scenario of loading.
Yeah, I'll be loading accounts and contacts. So I'll run through a couple of data loads using Jitterbit, I'll also demo some of the features as well as how to use an external line. So the first file, first thing that I have is insert of accounts, and let me show you the file.
Again, this is the open source edition, and the way to get this, if you go to setup under tools, you should see a link for the Jitterbit data loader from your Salesforce office. You can get to that.
Okay, I want to remove the file. But anyway, I have a file of accounts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an insert job. So I'm going to create a new insert. The first step that you do is you select your org, so you can provide all your security token, your username, password, and then you select your object, what object you want to upload to. So I'm going to say accounts, and as you type it, filters out filters of objects. Then you select your data source. Where is your data source coming from? And you have a couple of options in this. So it can either be a local file stored on your machine. You can have FTP or a file share, or it can even fit a database, SQL Server, or whatever, and pull in the data. For our purposes for today, I'll just select a local file. So I'm going to select account. And next, or you can even select an existing file source that you have already done from previous instances. I've created a couple of issues in the current file, so there's a couple of duplicate records, there's a couple of invalid fields, so I can show how it, when it fails, how I can handle it. And what's my file type? It's for my purpose, it's a CSV file with a header, so I'm going to keep the default. But you can have other delimiters too, whether it's a pipe delimiter or any other format. And you can review the file format if you want to. I'm going to skip that for now. And finally, scheduling. So if you want this job to run on a particular schedule, you can set it up over here. So I want to run it hourly, daily, whatever. So final step is like I'm going to map my source columns to my destination columns. So you can do this either manually by dragging and dropping, or you can use the automap feature. So based on the column names are the same, or very similar, using some fuzzy logic to map it. So it mapped most of the columns, where whatever is marked in blue has been mapped kind of. But if it's some weird name, it won't map it. So account name, it doesn't know that it's we mapped the name. So I can just drag and drop name to account name. And I finish. And then I run my insert. So if I want to edit my objects, I can do all of this. Run it. It's going to deploy it up to the server and then kind of run it. And you can view the result history. over here. So far it hasn't started it. So I'm just going to close this. Okay. And my task is done. So once it's done, it gives me a summary of what I've done. So I have 85 records succeeded, and I can, if I, you can view the records that succeeded. So these are all my accounts that got inserted. The very first column that it adds is a Salesforce ID. So this is now the new account ID assigned by Salesforce. So you can download it directly, so you have this ID. So if you want to load related objects of the account, like contact or any other custom object, you can use the Salesforce ID. This is one way to do it, and the other way is you can use external ID. So I'll be showing external ID, but this is one option you can use. And the last column will always be the status, whether the item has been created or upserted. In case an upsert, it has been updated. And you can also open the file in Excel. So if I look at my failure file, let me open it up in Excel. So I see that one of the issues is the duplicate record. So I've had this record twice in my file. So in this case, it will fail it because on my Salesforce, I've defined this as a unique column. So that's why I threw it out. So I can ignore this for now. Okay. My second error was that I purposely specified an invalid record type ID. So it told me I got an invalid value. Fix this. I'm going to delete this since I don't want it. Let me save this file. And I can now update the same file again. So I have my failure file. There's only one record that failed. So what I'm going to do is then I'm going to update it. I'm going to browse, go to my failure file, which I know is one record. I'm going to upload this. I'm going to deploy it.
One of the things with this tool is it always has its own cached desktop, so you need to kind of save it every time.
If I run my insert again, I'll see that one record will get updated. And I got my record. So at this point, I've loaded all my accounts. So what I'm going to do next is load my related contacts. And the one, so let me do that. So I'm going to say insert contacts. And I have contact file. Sure.
Is there a reason you're doing new insert instead of insert contacts or insert accounts?
These are my saved mappings.
Okay.
So it's something that I can reuse. So if I have the same file, the same format, I can reuse the same thing.
Okay.
But I wanted to show like starting from scratch how to create a new job.
And every time you complete a data row, it kind of saves it. You can put in the name to it, so that way you could reuse it. That's
Okay.
it.
I'm going to say the same thing. I wrote a schedule. And I'm going to auto map again. So I have all my columns mapped. The only exception is now to link it to the account, I can either use account ID if I had account ID in my file, Or in this case, I have specified org ID as an external ID column. So I have org ID from my legacy system, third-party system. So all what I can do is I can map the org ID to the account. So that's my external ID. So Salesforce knows that okay, this contact is linked to this account. So I'm going to drag and drop.
In a traditional way, usually you load the account, get the account ID in the file and kind of do that. So in this way, you don't need to get the account ID because it knows org ID. It uses the org ID from the contact to look up on the account and kind of link it. So that's the power of the external ID.
And this is running one of the files, one of the records that I inserted was this was my account. So it loaded the related contact. So my contact is kind of linked to my account. So based on the org ID, the org ID is called in the contact. In the account ID, so based on this org ID, it linked both of them together. And my contacts have all been inserted. So another feature that we can use is the upsert functionality. So upsert, so if the record exists, it will update that record, but if it doesn't exist, it will create a new record. So if I take my existing accounts file, let me make a copy of one of the accounts. I'll just call it the Salesforce demo. The high number. Maybe I'll assign a website to this. If I look at this particular record, one of them doesn't have an orientation, so I think it's a so if you look at this, it doesn't have a website. So I'm going to create a job that will upsert. New upsert. Okay, there you go. I'm going to save my accounts. And when you use upsert, you always have to specify an external ID. So I'm going to say, it's going to be linked by the org ID. So this is how it knows that you're either updating or inserting any record. You could use an ID too if you had it. So ID is one of the options. If not ID, then one of the external IDs. I'm going to go with org ID. I'm going to choose my accounts. Okay. Let me take something else in everyone. I'm going to use my valid record type. Okay. Next. And again, I'm going to use automap and account link equals to name. If there are duplicates, upsert will always throw an error. It won't insert the duplicate. We will there are two records in the file, it won't know which one it is. So that's one difference between using upsert and this and insert. Any questions so far?
There's a room full of posts. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So I see, I have two failures I know it's because of the duplicate, so this is my success file. And if I look at my status, for the records that have been updated, it will tell me the item updated, and I should have one item created. Okay, that's the new one that I use. So it knows to insert or update. One last feature that I wanted to show you was the bulk process. So if you have a very large file, instead of using just the insert, the regular processing, you might run into Salesforce like this. So what Jitterbit can do is use a bulk process. It will split the file up into multiple batches, and you can it will split it into batches of 10,000 records. If I clear the bulk process, the first thing I have to specify what kind of operation it is. Upsert, insert, delete, and select the login, and again you can specify whatever. So in this case, maybe I want to. Now I'm not going to run it. I'll just walk through and just show you. Specify whatever your external ID is. One feature using bulk upsert is you can save your mappings to a file, where you can auto import mappings from an existing file. So here I have mapped everything. I can save my mappings to a file. So the next time I use it, I have this mapping. So that was one feature I kind of wanted to show. I'm going to cancel out of here. And deletes is basically the only thing you have to specify is the IDs. Because Salesforce pretty much knows what object it is. If you look at it, I'm just going to do something like this. Notice that it never asks me for what object are you deleting, because based on Salesforce ID is always Unix, so you don't have to specify which object. And all you have to do is map the IDs, so I can map my Salesforce ID to ID. And that's pretty much all that I need. I think that's most of what I have. Is there anything specific anybody wants to see? Any questions?
Could you explain the icons at the top of the screen at the top right?
Okay,
Yeah,
this is to save whatever the so like I was being asked. So insert contacts is one of the jobs that I was running. So I can save the job. This is to deploy the item up to Jitterbit. And then refresh. It's a refresh both your structures, your source structure as well as your destination. And this tells you whether it's valid list of dependent objects. So in this case, that's done. And these are all my different jobs. I have a system status. I can see what the status of Jitterbit, my scheduler status also, whether what jobs are running, what are scheduled. These are your different kind of tasks you can do, bulk process, and you have your different connections. You have your sources, targets, files. You can have set up different schedules. So you have the schedules you can manage them.
This is a desktop version, so basically this can be used, for high volume data loads. But again, if you're doing it on a regular basis, take out a cloud-based edition as well. We can do that for you. So those are the price. This is the open source edition. So it's a one-time high volume data load. I can't get it done. It's pretty good.
Is this only for PC?
I think it has a Mac version.
It has a Mac version. Yeah.
I found this to be the best interface so far amongst all the ones that I've used. So this is pretty much what I use mostly for most of my flows.
Is the query feature easy to use?
Yeah, it is. I probably should have just showed that too. I want a new query. Let's go with account again. I can select whatever fields I want. You can select all, remove all. You can add your condition. Account number equals not equal to standard.
You got logic?
Yeah, like a different conditions, so that you can say account number equals, and then you can keep adding conditions. The logic can be done.
Okay.
So unless you know SAR code, if you do not know the SAR code, you could use this to have it make it do that. And then once you execute it, it's going to be your file. And you want to say,
Include the unit rows. I'm going to take off my connection.
and I'm sure you guys are aware of Workbench, you know, for example, there's a tool called Workbench, which Salesforce kind of aware. That's also a good tool to kind of query, do some queries and all that. If you just go to Workbench, just search in Google for Workbench, and then it will connect you to your org, and then you will do similar queries like that.
So you can specify what file you want to download the data to. And you can schedule it for various runs.
The good thing about these tools, when you can do well queries, you want to query that one object, like lead account, right? But then you want to query some field of account, some field of contact, some field of opportunity. That's like a combined query, right? So I don't think these kind of do that from a user interface level, unless you know software. You know, that's only an option. Unfortunately, I haven't seen much tools which can do those, combining objects, you know, like from a click, point and click, you can do that. So that's one of the limitations from the query.
For combining different objects, I found the easiest option may be using reports, standard Salesforce reports, that most of your work is done with that. So unless I need something that I can provide, then I'll go for something that I can expect to be there. So that's pretty much what I had to show.
Nothing major, just that.
What does everybody think? Did everybody learn something new? Was there something you could take away and bring back to your orgs? For some of the senior people, is there things that we maybe missed out on that you think would be good to share with some of the new folks here?
You mentioned demand tools. I like demand tools for advanced stuff. I would say the UI is cumbersome. Maybe that's an understatement. But it's incredibly powerful. It's a great tool in there. So it is pricey now, but it's great.
Well,
Demand
non-profits,
tools.
demand tools out there is free.
Right.
Oh, I'm not sure.
No, it's great.
Yeah.
It's like, here, have it.
I would also add, in the things to consider before a data load,
Yeah.
your validation rules on
Yes.
whatever object you're.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and maybe if you have a lot of workflows and head into governor limits, you might want to turn them up. So,
You can adjust, I don't know if you bit, yeah, but certainly data affects their size. So if you're running into governor issues, you can reduce the number of records processed each time, 12 to 200. I've done one. There's cases where I've had apps that just freak out and I'm doing one record at a time. It takes a long time, but I also don't have to deal with them every time. Nice to really control that.
What is the volume of data you guys load, like leads or counts, like on a regular basis, like 50,000 records or something, or what do you put kind of volume usually deal with? One time use or one time?
I have a nightly integration that uses Informatica, and it moves from one system into Salesforce, and it's 300 records, and it replaces the same data. But that's a little. I mean, that's kind of our everyday. That happens all the time. But I mean, we have 8,000 accounts.
Okay.
So that gives you an idea of how many contacts, how many, you know, there's just, it's not, I never hit any 50,000.
You had a point.
I mean, I yesterday had to update over 200,000 accounts.
Okay.
So, I broke it down into small files.
Yeah.
So, another thing to consider, and why I broke it down into small files, and I changed my batch size, was Process Builder fails to trigger a flow if you have more. It seems to vary on objects, but on the account, I can get away with doing 50 at a time. So I can set my size for that, but for the service contract, it can only be 20 for some reason. I don't know. I don't know what the logic is.
Do you
behind
have,
that.
do you have customizations like Apex codes on
We've-
the project?
Yeah, everywhere. So,
So that's why, because the process builder uses the same governor limits or some of the same governor limits as your Apex code. So depending on how much of your governor, your Apex code is using as much left over for process builder. So that's why it's 50 on the count, but maybe have more logic for
triggers.
service contracts. I think Salesforce uses that stuff in there, so it's
Yeah.
even less. And I think it's a little bit muddy between how much process builder has and how much. But I can tell you, Safe Harbor, that Salesforce is aware that process builder is pretty critical because of the multiplication issues with it. So they maximum 3 weeks out, so it's fixed. They might have it partially fixed, not in summer, but in winter release. So there is really to work with. No, so the process builder and loading out. Oh crap! I can't do more than that side of the 10 now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That reminds me that one thing that some people don't realize is that they can use a couple different methods to escape out of all the wonderful automation you've done in your Salesforce board. If you've gone to town and built on your validation rules, keep your users with crappy data in there, guide them through, out of the data in your system, and you're like, dang it, I need a little data. I don't want to fail the same rules to make my users follow. You can put a hidden checkbox on an object that says, bypass my validation and checkbox, and you can just check that flag field in all your validation rules, or as many as you need to have an escape clause on. And we project on the guys put it all over the place. A lot of very complicated logic, and sometimes we need to say, shut it all off. We just need to load the data, leave us alone for admins, we don't we're doing. And so you can use that to escape out. You can also use custom settings. A lot of admins don't realize they can use custom settings in sort of the developer section to set up. Ooh, can't touch that. It's just like setting up custom objects. It happens to be stored in memory in Salesforce, both the database and it's also the database. The memory, so you can reference any validation rules, workflow rules, any point configuration in Salesforce with those custom settings. And what's really cool about the hierarchical custom settings, you can create a custom setting, like I just created one the other day, it's address validation. And I have a word-wide setting that says, I need all the addresses to make sure that most of the data in there. But then I can put one in at the system administrator profile level and says, well, don't do it for me. I can, but it's still fine for everybody else. Or you can do it at user level, like just me, so you can do it at word level, profile level, at user level, anywhere. You don't have to. At any point, you say, oh, this person's way down over here in the tree, they get to constantly obey the rules of the person, what everybody else does. So you can use those things to kind of do an end run around some of the automation that you set up for the validation and integration set up in your work. And then there's a lot of other things that you can, if you think creatively about the fields of your object, you can do to create special scenarios. I like what you said about creating reports and creating, just you've got 800 custom fields in an object. Use them, to store, like you can even tag your data load, create an ID for yourself. Just a date and a iteration number. 528-1. Or dash count dash or something. So okay, this is exactly which one I did, which day, for what purpose. And really save your bacon and do to tag that stuff. So you go, okay, I did all this stuff this day, this week, whatever, which one was it? Then go back and untangle it.
That's a good point. Like especially with marketing, if you're loading like lists all the time, every time, it's always a question of when do you load it. And you can go look at the lead. It's all going to give you a date. You're not very sure which file you load there. So that way, identifying a field, as you know, something to at least identify the records we have. And that again helps in testing is that after you load, can I just run a quick report of the file? And sometimes we take it for granted. It's going to be there, but still spot check all the time.
So you're using a field so you're basically identifying the batch. You're identifying the batch and you're storing out the field.
And tagging the record, like, what was the origin of this record? It's kind of like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
DNA, you know, what's the DNA sequence for this? Where did this start from, you know? Because, you know, you get it created by created date, kind of naming it last modified. I hope, you know, anything that happened in there. But usually created by date content, like we said, it's not, it doesn't tell you a whole, you know, like, well, I could have been, you know, this or that, I don't know, which kind of ran, you know, kind of logs or whatever. So it's just like, this, and, you know, maybe you create the validation tool, so after the record created, you can't change that field, you know, it's kind of just like created by, created. So you can create it with stuff like that to help you keep track of where the data came from, what's impacted it.
Because some of the people use the lead source field, most of the time you load the lead. That's a good thing, but then you get 50 vendors, 50 lists, and you don't put 50 pictures for that.
Yeah.
That's a point.
They would like to.
So Alex and Boyd may have jumped the gun a little bit, but one of the things we're looking to do tonight is hear your feedback on what things have worked for you or what are some nice tips and tricks you can use. Put them in the comments section that we talked about for tonight's event so the people who couldn't be here can kind of see it. The best idea Boyd and Mario and I select, we'll get a gift card for Wegmans so I can cover your lunch one day. So at the very least, if there's one person who submits it, we're probably going to say that's the best idea. So we had 2 once, so we got to pick 1 time. So I'm hoping we get more than 2. It's a small group, so you have a very good chance of being the only person. But if you want to put those in the comment section, that way we can share and talk there a little bit more about it. That'd be good to go.
There might be hundreds on the web.
There might be thousands on the web, so I can't justify it. But then it's all backwards anyway, so they're not going to care.
All when you have those like
Right.
the defects in there, I couldn't I choose all the choices that you had in there, but dataloader.io that's kind of that micro thing. It's not it's probably not as powerful as some other options, but it's nice. Like it's not big.
I've heard a couple of people use data loader.
One thing to consider too with the data loaders is what edition of Salesforce you're using, because some editions of Salesforce may not allow you to use it. So something like Data Loader IO could be a good go-between to be able to bring in data to an org that might not have data loader access, like for the Salesforce data loader. So if you go into your org and you follow all the steps and you're all motivated to use the Salesforce data loader, and you check your edition and, oh, we don't have access to data loader. Some of these solutions, and like Data Loader IO was mentioned, could be a good go-between to still be able to bring in data to your org if you don't have access to that.
There are certain limitations of that, like if you want to like log into an external site and drop the file, the data would can do it. I know the fonts are very small, so that's one of the things we can do. Then Kindle job, I think there are some limitations on that. So I know it's very small. I'm not sharing this slide already.
You want a Jitterbit on?
No, because we already covered Jitterbit previously, so this was other data.
Someone mentioned a couple of website mentioned validation rules, term validation rules, validation rules. There's a tool out there, anyone knows, it's tequila.com, I think it is. They've got a set of tools available. One of them is called Switch, and it will disable all your validation rules and workflow rules. So if you're bringing large amounts of data into your org, you need to disable everything. Unless you're really good clips are on AE or have a lot of time to play, you know, Crusader from 20 originally switches from regular to over quickly, you want to say, well,
And then it's called Switch.
You want to-
Tequila.
They got a lot of good tools. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
Do we want to maybe post that in the comment section?
It's tequila.
TQUILA.
We'll post it in the comment section after, so folks can go there and find the link.
Someone that just bought five, yeah, was it? Someone just bought it. We're gonna do this.
Well, if there's no other questions, I believe that concludes our presentation for today. I want to thank y'all for coming out on this beautiful Thursday night to learn about data loaders. And stay tuned over the summer. We're going to have some more events upcoming, some of them to be planned, some of them are ready to go. Has anybody here submitted a presentation for Dreamforce? Couple people? Couple people are going? Okay. Well, if you're not going to Dreamforce or you're going to Dreamforce and you want to practice, I believe we're going to be having one coming in August for Dreamforce dry runs to be able to do a practice session in front of the group here. It's a great way if you're not going to Dreamforce to see 2 or 3 presentations all one night. That'll probably be happening in August. We're also gauging interest right now in a, was that the finger?
No, it's
Oh,
right.
okay. I was like, okay, I don't want to go to Dreamforce. We're also gauging interest in a social event over the summer as opposed to a learning event. So we'll have some more details on the Philly Force Meetup site after that. But if there are no other questions, please feel free to stay in network for a little bit. I think we have the room till 7:30. I want to thank Mr. T and Super Mario for carrying me through this presentation and having a great job. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming out.
Thank you.